I'm Amanda, 34. Last week, my parents called me crying, begging for $27,500 to save their apartment from foreclosure, exactly what the bank demands to prevent immediate eviction. The irony? That's just 15% of what I invested in the house they promised me 6 years ago, before secretly transferring the deed to my older brother, while I paid the mortgage believing I was investing in my future. I didn't scream, I didn't break down. I just took a deep breath, looked at the magnificent California sunset through the window of my custom trailer, and said, "I'm sorry, but you'll have to reap what you've sown." Then I hung up. Where are you watching from today? Drop your location in the comments below and hit that like and subscribe button if you've ever felt betrayed by someone you trusted completely. You'll definitely want to stick around for what happened next. Growing up in a middle-class family in Ohio, I learned early that my older brother, Lucas, was the priority. 2 years older than me, Lucas was always treated like the prodigy child. While he got private tutoring to improve his grades, I worked 2 jobs to pay for my college. When I broke my arm at 16, my parents canceled my birthday party to buy Lucas a new guitar. "You understand, right? He needs to feel special," my mom would say, as I swallowed back tears. Still, I remained loyal. I completed my degree in digital marketing, landed a stable corporate job at a renowned advertising agency, and when my parents faced financial problems at 28, I was the first to offer help. They were about to lose the family home due to accumulated debts, mostly to finance my brother's multiple failed courses and ventures. He was 30 by then. "We're drowning, Amanda," my father admitted one evening, his voice breaking. "The bank is threatening foreclosure." I immediately offered to help. That's who I was, the responsible one, the fixer. Do you know someone like that? The person who's always available to help family, no matter what? That was me. The solution seemed perfect. My parents proposed that I take over the mortgage payments, and in exchange, the house would be transferred to my name once paid off. "It's an investment in your future," my father stated, showing preliminary documents detailing our agreement. "You've always been the responsible one." I believed him. I trusted them completely. For 6 years, I sent $1,850 every month to cover the mortgage. My salary as a digital marketing manager allowed me to do this, though with significant sacrifices. I turned down promotions that would require relocation and lived in a modest apartment to save money. Whenever I asked to verify the legal status of the house, my parents always deflected. "The papers are with the lawyer," or "Trusting family is more important than paperwork." Amanda. Once, I signed documents my father assured were just formalities for refinancing, but which, as I would later discover, were part of the scheme to transfer the property. Meanwhile, Lucas, then 32, continued living in the house with my parents without contributing financially, pursuing his dream of becoming a famous musician. He frequently traveled with his band for small regional tours, sometimes staying away for weeks. On birthdays and holidays when I visited the house. My future house, I noticed small renovations and improvements. "We're adding value to your investment," my mother smiled. I believed I was finally getting recognition. I never questioned them. Not once. My colleagues couldn't understand why I lived so frugally while earning a good salary. They didn't know about the $1,150 leaving my account every month, money I believed was securing my future. "You could afford a much nicer place," my friend Sophia would tell me. "I'm investing in something better," I'd reply confidently. If only I had known what that investment really was. During those 6 years, I calculated exactly how much I put into that house. $133,200 in mortgage payments, plus $17,800 for repairs and improvements I had financed. A total of $151,000 savings that should have secured my future. Little did I know that future was being stolen from me. One signed document at a time. The truth came to light unexpectedly. During a surprise Sunday visit, I found the house empty except for Lucas, who was sleeping after returning from a 3-month tour. On the kitchen table, papers were scattered documents he'd clearly been reviewing before falling asleep on the couch. My heart stopped when I recognized the bank's logo. It was a second mortgage requested 3 months earlier for $85,000. The initial shock turned to nausea when I saw the name on the deed. Lucas Martin. Not Amanda Martin. Lucas. With trembling hands, I photographed every document. I discovered the house had never been transferred to my name as promised. In fact, 2 years after our agreement, when I had already invested more than $44,000, my parents secretly transferred the property to Lucas, using documents they had me sign under false pretenses. I was still paying the original mortgage, believing I was investing in my future. Even more shocking, the second mortgage had been used to finance a recording studio for Lucas's band in the house's basement and to cover my parents' growing debts. Approximately $40,000 of the $85,000 had gone directly to the studio equipment and soundproofing, with the remainder covering credit card debts and other expenses they'd accumulated. "What the hell?" I whispered, hand over my mouth to prevent myself from screaming. My fingers felt numb as I continued taking photos of every incriminating page, the dates, signatures, notary stamps, all evidence of a calculated betrayal spanning years. I heard Lucas stirring in the living room. Quickly, I rearranged the papers exactly as I'd found them and slipped out the back door. In my car, I finally broke down. 6 years of sacrifices, of believing I was building something for myself, shattered in minutes. Tears streamed down my face as I drove away, my vision so blurred I had to pull over. I immediately called my best friend, Sophia. I drove to her apartment in a state of shock, the digital copies of the documents weighing on my phone like lead. "Amanda, this isn't just a betrayal. It's literally fraud," Sophia said after examining the photos. "They took your money for 6 years, over $130,000, while deceiving you. You need to confront them and possibly seek legal counsel." It was the first time someone validated my indignation, instead of telling me to understand their side or keep family peace. Sophia not only acknowledged the injustice, but showed me my reaction wasn't exaggerated. "What if I just stop paying?" I asked, the idea emerging like a thread of hope amid the chaos. "Honestly, the house is legally theirs. If you stop paying, they'll bear the consequences," Sophia responded, her eyes reflecting the same indignation I felt. "A legal process could recover your money," she suggested. "But that would mean years of battles, expensive lawyers, and being perpetually connected to them through this conflict." I reflected on that. I don't want revenge. I want freedom. If I sue, I'll be tied to them and this betrayal for years. For the first time, I allowed myself to imagine a different life, one where I wasn't defined by family obligations or false promises. "What would you do if you weren't paying that mortgage anymore?" Sophia asked softly. The question hung in the air like an open door. "I've always wanted to travel," I whispered, the dream I'd suppressed for years finally taking shape. "See the world, experience different cultures." "So why not do it?" Sophia challenged. "You have skills that allow you to work remotely. What's stopping you?" "Responsibility," I answered automatically. "To whom? People who lied to you for 6 years?" Her words hit me like cold water. She was right. "I need time to think," I said, already feeling something shifting inside me. A possibility. A choice. I spent that night at Sophia's apartment, unable to face going home. My phone buzzed with texts from my mother. "Are you coming for dinner Sunday? Lucas is back from tour." As if nothing was wrong. As if they hadn't stolen my future. I spent a week processing what I'd discovered, not returning my parents' persistent calls. "We're worried about you," their messages said. No mention of the documents I had found. During this week, I reviewed 6 years of bank statements. I calculated exactly how much I had invested in that house. $133,200 in mortgage payments, plus $17,800 for repairs and improvements I had financed. A total of $151,000 savings that should have secured my future. While organizing these numbers, an idea began to take shape. For years, I had dreamed of traveling, seeing the world, experiencing other cultures. At the agency where I worked, my digital marketing specialty put me in a privileged position. They had offered me a position with remote work flexibility 3 times, and 3 times I had declined due to my responsibility with the house. I started researching mobile living options, digital nomad communities, travel bloggers. My digital marketing experience could be an advantage if I decided to create my own blog. A life that once seemed impossible began to materialize as a real option. I consulted with an attorney, bringing copies of all the documents I had photographed, including the preliminary agreement we had drafted 6 years ago. His assessment was sobering. "You have a case for fraudulent misrepresentation," he explained, "but litigation would be expensive and time-consuming. Even with a favorable judgment, collecting could take years if they don't have liquid assets." "What about the house itself?" I asked. "It's been legally transferred to your brother. We could challenge that, but if he's taken out a second mortgage, it complicates matters significantly." The more we discussed legal options, the more trapped I felt. Even if I won, I'd be tethered to this betrayal for years financially, emotionally, and practically. Meanwhile, my parents' calls became more frequent. Their voicemails shifted from concern to confusion to mild irritation. "Amanda, we haven't heard from you in days. Is everything okay? Your brother is asking about you. He says you came by but didn't stay. Amanda, this is getting ridiculous. Call us back." Not once did they mention the documents I had discovered or the betrayal they had orchestrated. I finally replied with a brief text. "I'm fine. Need some time. We'll call soon." That bought me the space I needed to make my plan. First, I approached my boss about the remote position they had offered previously. "I've been reconsidering your offer," I said during our meeting. "Is that remote position still available?" His eyebrows shot up in surprise. "The one you've turned down 3 times? What changed?" "Everything," I replied simply. "Well, we'd still love to have you transition to remote work. Your performance has been exemplary, and frankly, we've been hoping you'd reconsider." Just like that, the first piece fell into place. Next, I contacted a financial advisor to understand how to best utilize my remaining savings. After paying the mortgage for so long, I had less than I should have, but still enough to make a significant change. If I wanted to invest in a quality trailer to live and work from, what would be my best options? I asked. She didn't even blink at the unusual question. "Let's look at your finances and make a plan." By the end of the week, I had a clear financial strategy. Use part of my savings for a down payment on a quality trailer, sell most of my belongings to create additional capital, and maintain my full-time remote job while developing my travel blog on the side. I felt something I hadn't experienced in years. Excitement, possibility, hope. That Sunday, I finally answered my parents' call. "We need to talk," I said firmly. "Let's meet for lunch tomorrow." "Is everything okay?" my mother asked, concern tinged with something else, fear perhaps. "We'll discuss everything tomorrow," I replied and hung up. Have you ever had that moment when you realize your entire life is about to change? Drop a comment below if you've experienced that mixture of terror and exhilaration. I chose a public restaurant for our meeting deliberately. In the 2 weeks between my discovery and our encounter, I had made decisions that would change my life. I formally requested the remote position at the agency, which was still available. I planned to keep my job while developing my blog, ensuring financial stability during the transition. I sold almost all my belongings, keeping only the essentials. And most importantly, I used part of my savings and a recent bonus to make a down payment on a high-quality trailer and customized it to serve as a mobile home and office. My parents arrived at the restaurant looking worried. Lucas wasn't with them, which was a relief. "Amanda, what's going on? We've been so worried," my mother began, reaching for my hand across the table. I pulled back slightly, maintaining a polite smile. "I found some interesting documents at the house 2 weeks ago." The color drained from both their faces. What documents?" my father stammered, though his expression made it clear he already knew. I placed my phone on the table, screen up, showing a photo of the deed with Lucas's name. "These documents? And the second mortgage papers? And the transfer of ownership forms that I apparently signed." My mother's hand flew to her mouth. "Amanda, we can explain—" "I'm sure you can," I interrupted calmly. "You can explain how you promised me the house would be transferred to my name after I paid the mortgage, but instead secretly gave it to Lucas. You can explain how you had me sign papers under false pretenses. You can explain the $85,000 second mortgage for Lucas's recording studio. It wasn't just for the studio," my father protested weakly. "We had other debts." "That's not the point," I said, my voice steady despite the anger burning inside me. "The point is that you lied to me for 6 years while taking over $150,000 of my money." They exchanged panicked glances. "What are you going to do?" my father finally asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "I'm not going to sue you, if that's what you're worried about," I replied. "Though I could. According to the lawyer I consulted." Their eyes widened at the mention of a lawyer. "What I am going to do is inform you that I won't be making any more mortgage payments. Starting next month, that's your responsibility again." But we can't afford it," my mother blurted out. "You know we can't. Then you'll have to figure something out. Sell the house, perhaps. Or ask Lucas to contribute, since he's the legal owner now." "Where will you live?" my father demanded, as if trying to find a flaw in my plan. I smiled, feeling genuinely light for the first time in years. "I've purchased a trailer. I'll be working remotely and traveling." They both stared at me in disbelief before my father let out a derisive laugh. "A trailer? You're going to live like some kind of vagrant? After all your education, your career?" "I'm going to live free," I corrected him. "On my terms, for once." "This is ridiculous," my mother hissed. "What will people think?" "I don't care what people think anymore. I only care what I think. And I think it's time I lived for myself." As I stood to leave, my father grabbed my wrist. "You'll regret this, Amanda. When you come crawling back, don't expect us to help you." I gently removed his hand. "I won't be coming back, and I won't need your help." Walking out of that restaurant, I felt lighter than I had in years. For the first time in my adult life, I was making a choice solely for myself, not to please my parents, not to help my brother, not to fulfill some arbitrary family obligation. I was choosing freedom. As I drove back to my apartment, soon to be my former apartment, I realized I hadn't felt a single moment of doubt during the confrontation. No second guessing, no wavering. Just absolute certainty that I was finally making the right choice for myself. The chaos that followed was predictable. Legal threats, which had no foundation, since the documents I signed were obtained under false pretenses. Emotional appeals. Attempts to have Lucas talk to me, as if he could convince me to continue financing his lifestyle. "You can't be serious about living in a trailer." My father laughed when I mentioned my plans. "That's for losers, Amanda. You have a degree, a career. It's a choice, Dad, my choice, something I'm doing for myself for the first time in my life." The day I left, I briefly parked in front of their house. Lucas came out, seeming genuinely confused by the whole situation. "Dad just told me you're stopping the mortgage payments," he said, his expression troubled. "And something about documents you found. You didn't know I was paying the mortgage for the past 6 years?" I asked skeptically. He ran a hand through his hair, looking uncomfortable. "I knew you were helping with the bills. I didn't know you were paying the entire mortgage. And I definitely didn't know they promised you the house. The house that's now in your name," I pointed out. He winced. "They told me that was just for tax purposes. That it made sense because I live here." I almost laughed at the absurdity. "And the $85,000 second mortgage for your recording studio? Was that for tax purposes too?" "It wasn't just for the studio," he defended weakly. "But yeah, a lot of it went into that. I thought they were using their retirement savings or something." "Those retirement savings were my mortgage payments," I said. "I've paid over $150,000 into this house, believing it would eventually be mine." His eyes widened. "I didn't know, Amanda, I swear." Whether he was telling the truth or not didn't matter anymore. The fact remained that he had benefited from my financial sacrifice knowingly or not. "Maybe I can pay you back some of the money when my band gets a contract," he offered hesitantly. "When?" I asked. "You've been trying for 15 years, Lucas. Keep dreaming. I'm going to live." I noticed something in his eyes, perhaps the first glimmer of self-awareness. "You're right. It's not fair," he murmured. But it was too late. As I drove away, I caught a glimpse of my parents watching from the window. They looked smaller somehow, diminished by the truth finally coming to light. My new trailer wasn't exactly luxury, not yet. It was a solid, mid-range model I had carefully selected for reliability and functionality rather than flash. I had customized the interior to create an efficient workspace, with high-speed satellite internet, a compact desk setup, and clever storage solutions. The first night in my new home, parked at a campsite just outside the city, I sat outside under the stars with a glass of wine. The silence was profound, no family drama, no guilt, no obligations pulling at me from every direction. Just me and the choices I was finally free to make. The next morning, I officially began my remote work arrangement. My colleagues were surprised but supportive when I explained my new lifestyle. "You're living the dream," my coworker Jen exclaimed during our video call. "I can't believe you actually did it." "Neither can I. Sometimes," I admitted, showing her my compact but functional workspace. Those first few weeks were an adjustment, learning to manage water and power consumption, finding reliable places to park, creating routines that worked within smaller spaces. But with each challenge I overcame, my confidence grew. I started documenting my journey on Instagram, mostly as a personal record, rather than with any expectation of an audience. Freedom on wheels. I tagged my first post a photo of my morning coffee with a mountain view in the background. To my surprise, people responded. Friends at first, then friends of friends. Then strangers who found my content through hashtags. They were curious about this lifestyle, asking practical questions about costs, logistics, work arrangements. How do you get reliable internet? Where do you shower? Do you feel safe? How much did your setup cost? I answered honestly, sharing both the challenges and the joys. As my follower count slowly grew, I realized there was genuine interest in this journey I'd embarked on, not just the travel aspects, but the emotional liberation it represented. The first 6 months on the road were challenging and liberating at the same time. I maintained my remote job at the agency, working from campgrounds, coffee shops, and occasional co-working spaces. I learned to manage limited resources, find safe places to park, create an efficient work routine in compact spaces. Meanwhile, I began documenting my journey on a blog called Freedom on Wheels. Thanks to my digital marketing experience, I knew how to create engaging content, optimize for search engines, and build a social media presence. Still, growth was gradual. In the first 3 months, I struggled to reach 1,000 followers. Many nights I questioned my decision while working late on my laptop with unstable internet connections. But my unique perspective, someone who abandoned toxic family expectations to follow an unconventional path, began to resonate with a specific niche of people. By the 6th month, I reached 10,000 followers and received my first small sponsorship offer, a camping equipment brand offering $200 worth of products in exchange for content. Not exactly life-changing money, but a validation that my journey had value beyond my personal experience. My parents' calls became less frequent but more desperate. The reality of their financial situation began to manifest. Without my monthly payments, they were struggling to afford the mortgage. The recording studio in the basement, which had cost tens of thousands of dollars from the second mortgage, remained virtually unused as Lucas became increasingly unmotivated with his music career. "Amanda, please, we need to talk about the house," my father pleaded in a call, 6 months after my departure. "The bank is threatening foreclosure. Talk to the legal owner," I replied simply. "It's not my house, remember?" The call ended with my father's bitter accusations. "You're punishing us for trying to help your brother. What kind of daughter does that?" I didn't bother explaining again. The time for explanations was over. Meanwhile, my new life was taking shape in ways I hadn't anticipated. The freedom to choose my location based on weather, interests, or simply a change of scenery was intoxicating. I followed good weather, avoiding extreme temperatures that would make trailer living uncomfortable. I developed routines and systems that worked for my new lifestyle. Monday meetings from scenic overlooks, content creation days in coffee shops with reliable Wi-Fi, weekend explorations of whatever area I was parked in. My content evolved too. What started as simple documentation of my journey became more focused on the intersection of digital work, minimalist living, and emotional freedom. I shared practical tips on remote work setups, storage solutions, and navigating campground life. But the posts that resonated most were the ones where I discussed breaking free from toxic family dynamics and learning to prioritize my own well-being. "How did you find the courage to leave?" was a question I received almost daily. "I realized staying was costing me more than just money," I would reply. "It was costing me my future, my peace, and my self-respect." 6 months into my journey, I received an unexpected message from Lucas. Unlike my parents, who alternated between guilt trips and anger, his tone was different. "I got a job," he wrote. "An actual job. At a music store. First regular paycheck I've ever had at 36. Feels strange, but also good. Like I'm finally a grown-up or something." I didn't respond immediately, unsure if this was another manipulation tactic. He continued. "The band broke up. Turns out no one wants to sign middle-aged guys who've been playing the same 3 venues for a decade. Who knew?" The self-deprecating humor felt genuine. "Congratulations on the job," I finally replied. "It's never too late to start. Thanks. I'm sorry, by the way, for everything. I didn't know exactly what was happening with the house, but I should have asked more questions, should have contributed more." It was the closest thing to an apology I'd received from any family member. "I appreciate that," I wrote back. "I hope the job works out for you." "Thanks. Your trailer life looks pretty amazing from the pictures you post. A lot better than our parents make it sound." I smiled at that. "It is amazing. Best decision I ever made." Maybe he was changing. Maybe he wasn't. Either way, it wasn't my responsibility anymore. 1 year after my departure, my blog had grown modestly but steadily. With 25,000 followers and a few regular small partnerships, I was earning enough from content creation to supplement my income from the agency job, though nowhere near enough to replace it entirely. Travel equipment companies and outdoor lifestyle brands occasionally reached out for partnerships, usually offering products or small fees in exchange for content. The work was constant content production, brand negotiations, social media management, but it was my work, built with my own hands. I started saving to eventually replace my initial trailer with a more comfortable model. Meanwhile, I received news that my parents and Lucas were facing imminent foreclosure on the house. The second mortgage, combined with the lack of my monthly payments, had made the situation unsustainable. The recording studio equipment, which had consumed much of the second mortgage, was being listed for sale to try to cover part of the debts. But it would likely sell for far less than they'd invested. I received a message from Lucas. "First time in my life I'm actually paying rent. Dad's furious that I'm not giving them more of my paycheck, but I told him I need to learn to stand on my own feet. Better late than never, right?" When I posted photos of my trailer parked on the California coast, overlooking the ocean, I received a bitter message from my mother. "Hope you're happy living like a homeless person while your family suffers." I responded with a single photo, me working on my laptop with a stunning view in the background and the caption, "Don't confuse choice with circumstance. I chose freedom. You chose lies." The contrast between our situations wasn't lost on my growing audience. As I shared more of my story, carefully anonymized to protect my family's privacy, comments poured in from people who had experienced similar family dynamics. You inspired me to finally set boundaries with my toxic parents. I never thought I could leave my hometown, but your journey showed me it's possible. I've been supporting my brother financially for years. Your story made me realize I need to stop. The responsibility of being a voice for others who felt trapped weighed on me, but it also gave my journey greater purpose. This wasn't just about my freedom anymore, it was about showing others what was possible when you chose yourself. My blog evolved from simple travel documentation to a platform about financial independence, boundary setting, and creating an authentic life. I partnered with a financial advisor named Rachel to create content about recovering from financial abuse and rebuilding after family betrayal. These posts performed better than anything I'd created before. 1 year into my journey, I had saved enough to upgrade my setup significantly. I invested in a higher quality trailer with better insulation, more efficient solar power systems, and amenities that made daily life more comfortable. It wasn't the luxury model I dreamed of eventually owning, but it was a substantial improvement. I celebrated the 1-year anniversary of my departure with a live video from a breathtaking national park location. As hundreds of followers joined to ask questions and share congratulations, I felt a profound sense of community, something I had lost when I distanced myself from my family, but had found again on my own terms. During that live stream, someone asked the question I'd been anticipating. Do you ever regret leaving? Do you miss your family? I took a moment before answering honestly. I miss who I wished they were. I miss the support and love I deserved but never consistently received. But do I regret choosing myself finally? Not for a single moment. The comment section flooded with heart emojis and supportive messages. After the stream ended, I sat outside my trailer watching the sunset, reflecting on how much had changed in just 1 year. From a woman who had spent her entire adult life trying to earn her family's approval, to someone who had built a new life completely on her own terms. What do you think will happen next in my journey? Drop your predictions in the comments below. 18 months after starting my journey, my blog had grown to 50,000 followers, a respectable number that reflected consistent effort rather than viral luck. The growth represented countless hours of content creation, engagement, and learning the business side of influencer marketing. I was still working my remote agency job, though I had reduced to part-time hours as my blog income gradually increased. It wasn't enough to fully support myself yet, but I was moving in that direction. With the combined income from both sources, I was able to maintain my lifestyle and continue saving. That's when I received an unexpected email from Lucas. Unlike my parents, who alternated between guilt and anger, he had shown gradual signs of change in the occasional messages we exchanged. I know you probably don't want to hear from me, but I need to say this. You were right. I never questioned where the money came from to maintain the house and finance my dreams. I accepted the easy path because it benefited me. Now I understand how much it cost you. We scheduled a video call. Lucas looked different, more mature, finally facing adult responsibilities. They're in trouble, he admitted. Dad lost his job when the company downsized and they're drowning in debt. The apartment we got after losing the house is about to be taken by the bank. They need $1,700 to avoid immediate eviction. They're talking about asking for your help again. And what do you think about that? I asked, testing him. I think you've already given more than you should have. And I think they need to learn to live with the consequences of their own choices, just as I'm learning to. It was the first time I felt a genuine connection with my brother. The call continued, Lucas filling me in on the aftermath of the house foreclosure. It was a wake-up call, he said. When we had to move to the apartment, I finally realized how much we had depended on you. The recording studio equipment sold for barely enough to cover 1 month's rent. All those dreams, they weren't sustainable without someone else footing the bill. And your music career? I asked. On hold indefinitely. Turns out when you actually have to pay your own bills, spending weekends playing at bars for $50 a night loses its appeal. He gave a self-deprecating smile. The music store job is working out, though. I've been there a year now, and they're talking about training me for assistant manager. I couldn't help but feel a glimmer of pride for him. That's great, Lucas, really. It's still nothing compared to what you've built, he gestured, presumably indicating my trailer and the life I'd created. Mom and Dad don't get it. They still talk about your trailer phase like you're having some kind of breakdown. They don't see that you're thriving. Their approval stopped mattering to me a long time ago, I said. I know. And that's what scares them the most. He hesitated. They're going to call you about the money. Dad found your number somehow. And you're warning me? I'm giving you a heads up. What you do with it is your choice. He paused. For what it's worth, I told them not to ask you, that you don't owe them anything. After we hung up, I sat watching the sunset from my current parking spot, a beautiful coastal campground where I'd been staying for 2 weeks. The ocean stretched before me, vast and free, much like the life I'd created for myself. When my father's call came the next day, I was prepared. Amanda, we need to talk, he began, his voice a mixture of authority and desperation that once would have made me immediately comply. I'm listening, I replied calmly. We're in a difficult situation. The bank is threatening eviction if we don't make a payment by the end of the month. We need $1,700. The specific amount confirmed Lucas wasn't exaggerating. This wasn't a casual request for help, this was a financial emergency. I'm sorry to hear that, I said, meaning it. Despite everything, I didn't wish homelessness on them. We were hoping you could help us. Just this once. The last part was almost laughable, as if I hadn't been helping for 6 years. I'm not in a position to give you that kind of money, I replied truthfully. While my blog was doing well, I wasn't earning anywhere near what I had at the agency, and most of my savings had gone into my upgraded trailer. You seem to be doing fine in your alternative lifestyle, he said, unable to keep the disapproval from his voice even while asking for money. My alternative lifestyle is carefully budgeted. I don't have $1,798 to give away. His tone instantly hardened. So that's it? After everything we've done for you? Everything you've done for me? I repeated, incredulous. Like taking over $150,000 of my money under false pretenses? We gave you life. We raised you. And now you're going to let us become homeless because of your selfishness? I took a deep breath. Dad, I hope you find a solution to your financial problems. I really do. But it won't be coming from me. I hung up before he could respond. The call from my father was just the beginning. Over the next week, both my parents launched a full-scale emotional assault voicemails, texts, and even emails detailing their dire situation and reminding me of my obligation as a daughter. We changed your diapers, and this is how you repay us? My mother texted. Your brother is trying to help, but he can't do it alone, my father wrote, conveniently omitting that Lucas had spent decades contributing nothing. I didn't respond to any of these messages. Not because I was trying to be cruel, but because I recognized the pattern. They weren't interested in reconciliation, they wanted money. They wanted to reestablish the dynamic where my resources were available for their use. Instead, I channeled my feelings into my work. I created a series about financial independence and setting boundaries that resonated deeply with my audience. Without sharing specific details about my parents' situation, I discussed the broader phenomenon of adult children being expected to financially support parents who had made poor decisions. The series performed better than any content I'd created before, reaching beyond my usual audience. My follower count jumped to 75,000 within a month. Sponsorship offers increased, though still mostly modest, a financial literacy app, offering $500 for a dedicated post, a digital banking platform wanting a partnership. I found myself becoming a voice for a generation struggling with similar family dynamics, where financially responsible adult children were expected to be safety nets for parents who hadn't planned properly for their futures. The comment sections filled with stories similar to mine, creating a community of support and validation. 2 weeks after my father's call, Lucas texted me, "They got evicted today. They're staying with me in my one-bedroom apartment for now." I felt a pang of something not quite guilt, but sadness for the situation. "How are you handling all this?" I replied. "It's tough. Mom cries a lot. Dad alternates between anger and depression. They blame you, of course. And you?" I told them they should have saved some of the money from the second mortgage instead of building me a recording studio I barely used. Didn't go over well. I smiled despite myself. "I can imagine. Your latest video series hit close to home. Almost felt like you were describing our family specifically. It's a common dynamic, unfortunately." "Yeah, I'm learning that. By the way, I showed them the video where you toured your upgraded trailer. Dad called it showing off. I think he's actually jealous." The thought was both sad and strangely validating. My father, who had dismissed my trailer phase as a breakdown, was now jealous of what I'd built. "Thanks for the update," I wrote. "And Lucas, I'm proud of you for stepping up. Thanks. That means a lot." That night, I filmed a sunset from my current location, a stunning desert landscape with mountains silhouetted against a purple and orange sky. As I set up the shot, I noticed an older couple a few campsites away watching me with interest. "Are you that girl from the videos?" the woman asked, approaching cautiously. "Freedom on Wheels?" "That's me," I smiled, extending my hand. "Amanda, we love your content," she gushed. "My daughter showed us your videos. She's trying to convince us to sell our house and travel when we retire next year." "And are you convinced?" I asked. "Getting there," the husband chuckled. "Your videos about financial freedom really made us think. We spent so many years paying for a house we rarely enjoy because we're always working to afford it." "Would you mind if we took a photo with you?" the woman asked sheepishly. "Our daughter won't believe we met you." As I posed with this couple who had been inspired by my journey, I felt a profound sense of purpose. My personal story of breaking free from toxic family dynamics had evolved into something larger, a movement encouraging others to question societal expectations and choose their own definitions of success and freedom. Later that evening, I received a notification that my latest video had reached 100,000 views, my first content to hit that milestone. The top comment read, "You gave me the courage to finally say no to my parents' financial demands. For the first time in my adult life, I'm saving for my future, not theirs." The validation of strangers couldn't replace family approval, but it confirmed what I already knew. I had made the right choice. 2 years after leaving my old life behind, my Freedom on Wheels blog had grown to 100,000 followers. It wasn't the explosive growth some influencers experience, but rather a steady increase built on consistent content, genuine connections, and valuable information. I had published my first book, A Guide to Mobile Living, combined with reflections on breaking free from toxic family dynamics. It was performing well in its niche categories, though it certainly wasn't on any major bestseller lists. The modest advance in royalties provided another income stream to supplement my part-time agency work and growing sponsorship deals. My collaboration with Rachel, the financial advisor I'd partnered with a year earlier, had evolved into a popular recurring feature on the blog. Our joint content on identifying and recovering from financial abuse resonated deeply with my audience, becoming some of my most shared posts. Between sponsorships, now ranging from $1,000 to $2,000 per collaboration, book royalties, and a small online course about remote work that I'd launched, my income was approaching what I had earned working full-time at the agency. I had recently reduced my agency hours even further, planning to transition to full-time content creation within the next 6 months. My current trailer, while not the most luxurious on the market, was comfortable, well-equipped, and occasionally featured in design and alternative lifestyle magazines. I had invested in quality upgrades that made daily life easier, better solar power systems, improved connectivity options, clever storage solutions. The growth wasn't instantaneous, it was a steady progression based on hard work, smart marketing strategy, and authenticity. Each milestone was achieved with determination. 10,000 followers in the first 6 months, 25,000 by the end of the first year, 50,000 at 18 months, 100,000 now. My digital marketing training and professional experience gave me advantages many beginning content creators don't have. Recently, I had saved enough to plan my first international trip with a rented motorhome, a modest 2-week exploration of New Zealand's South Island, where I would create content and expand my audience internationally. My parents had settled into their new, smaller apartment. Lucas was now the assistant manager at the music store, a position he had earned through consistent work rather than charm or promised potential. He had met someone, Sarah, a piano teacher who gave lessons at the store, and they were cautiously dating. Our relationship had evolved into something resembling adult siblings rather than the unequal dynamic of our childhood. We exchanged occasional messages, mostly updates on our lives rather than deep conversations. He still lived in the same city as our parents, but had established healthier boundaries with them. "Dad still brings up the house sometimes," he told me during one of our rare phone calls. "Says if you had just kept paying, we'd all be better off." "And what do you say to that?" I asked. I remind him that it wasn't your house. It was mine, technically, thanks to what you both did, and that I'm better off now than I was then, even if my apartment is smaller and I have to actually work for a living. I felt a surge of pride hearing those words. Lucas at 38 was finally becoming the person he could have been years ago if our parents hadn't enabled his perpetual adolescence. My father hadn't contacted me directly since his failed attempt to get money for their apartment. My mother occasionally sent brief, stilted messages on birthdays or holidays, but we hadn't had a real conversation in over a year, until today. "Amanda?" Her voice was tentative when I answered the unexpected call. "How are you?" "I'm well," I replied cautiously. "Is everything okay?" "Your father had a heart attack yesterday." My breath caught. Despite everything, they were still my parents. "Is he—" "He's stable," she quickly assured me. "But he'll need surgery. The doctors say his recovery will take months." I waited, bracing myself for the inevitable request for money. "I'm not calling to ask for anything," she said, surprising me. "Lucas said I shouldn't. I just thought you should know." The lack of manipulation was so unexpected that I found myself momentarily speechless. "Thank you for telling me," I finally managed. "Please keep me updated on his condition." "I will." A pause. "Your book is good. I found it at the library." Before I could respond to this unexpected comment, she continued, "I don't understand all your choices, but the writing is good. You always were the smart one." It was the closest thing to a compliment she had given me in years. After the call ended, I sat on the steps of my trailer, processing the complex emotions stirring within me. Concern for my father's health, surprise at my mother's relatively boundary-respecting call, a tentative hope that perhaps, in their own way, they were finally changing too. I didn't immediately pack up to rush to my father's bedside. That wasn't the relationship we had anymore. But I did send a fruit basket to the hospital with a simple note, wishing you a speedy recovery. Amanda. Small steps. Maintained boundaries. Measured compassion. That evening, I hosted a live stream for my followers, discussing the complexities of maintaining boundaries with family during health crises. Without sharing the specific details of my situation, I explored the nuances of showing compassion without reverting to unhealthy dynamics. Boundaries aren't about punishment, I explained to my audience. They're about protection. You can wish someone well without sacrificing your well-being. The comments section, filled with stories from followers navigating similar situations, adult children figuring out how to relate to parents who had hurt them deeply without completely severing ties or reverting to toxic patterns. In those stories, I found both validation and guidance. We were all figuring it out together, one careful step at a time. 2 years into my journey, I was no longer defined solely by what I had left behind, but by what I was building: a community, a career, a life aligned with my values. The freedom I had found wasn't just geographic, it was emotional. I had learned that sometimes the greatest act of self-love is simply walking away from relationships that consistently take more than they give, and that our greatest blessings often await on the other side of our greatest fear. My mother's voice cracked when she called again after 3 months of minimal contact. Your father's recovery is slower than expected. The doctor says he shouldn't be alone, but I need to work extra shifts to cover the medical bills. 3 years had passed since I discovered their betrayal. My blog now had over 150,000 followers, and I was working on my second book focusing on financial independence and boundary setting with family. My trailer had been upgraded again, not extravagant, but comfortable and well-designed, with custom features that made it perfect for my nomadic lifestyle. I had just returned from my first international trip, 2 weeks traveling through New Zealand in a rented motorhome, documenting breathtaking landscapes and connecting with followers from that country. The trip had been everything I'd dreamed of and more, validating every difficult decision that led me to this life. I'm sorry to hear about Dad's difficult recovery, I replied, meaning it. Despite everything, I didn't wish suffering on them. We're struggling, Amanda, she continued. Lucas is helping as much as he can, but with his wedding coming up, this was news to me. Lucas is getting married? To Sarah, the piano teacher. They got engaged last month, didn't he tell you? He hadn't, though we occasionally exchanged brief, polite messages. Our relationship had improved but remained distant, a mutual respect without the closeness of true siblings. We're not in regular contact, I explained simply. Well, he and Sarah are planning a small ceremony. He's trying to save for that while also helping us. He's been a real support, but he can't do everything. The old pattern emerged, the subtle implication that I should step up because Lucas was already doing his part. But something was different this time. My mother's voice lacked the entitled tone I'd grown accustomed to. She sounded tired. What kind of help are you looking for? I asked cautiously. I don't know, she admitted, which was itself a change from the usual specific monetary requests. The medical bills are overwhelming. My lifestyle isn't suitable for that, and frankly, we need more healing before spending that kind of time together would be healthy for any of us. I heard her quiet intake of breath disappointment, but no argument. But, I continued, I can help you research options. There are programs for seniors needing home care, and I can contribute something toward a part-time caregiver, not tens of thousands, but perhaps $300 a month for the next 6 months while Dad recovers. You'd do that? After everything? I'm not doing it to erase the past, I clarified. I'm offering because it's what I would do for anyone in your situation, the kind of help that maintains boundaries while acknowledging that we're still family in some way. After the call ended, I sat outside my trailer watching the Montana sunset, reflecting on how much had changed. 3 years ago, a call like that would have sent me spiraling into guilt and obligation. Now, I could offer measured assistance without compromising my core boundaries. The next day, I compiled resources for my mother, information on home health care assistance, patient advocate services, and organizations that help with medical debt. I also set up an automatic monthly transfer of $300 to her account, an amount I could afford without strain, but that was far from the complete bailout they would have expected in the past. I also reached out to Lucas to congratulate him on his engagement. Thanks, he replied. I was going to tell you, but wasn't sure if you'd want to know. It's going to be very small, just us. A few friends and Mom and Dad if Dad's health allows. I'm happy for you, I wrote, and meant it. Sarah seems good for you. She is. She doesn't put up with my bullshit, which is exactly what I needed. He paused before adding, Mom said she talked to you about Dad. Yes, I'm helping a bit with caregiver costs. That's generous. Considering everything. I didn't think you would. It's not about the past. It's about doing what feels right now. On my terms. I get that. I really do. We continued messaging, cautiously rebuilding a connection based on mutual respect, rather than the dysfunctional patterns of our childhood. Lucas had changed responsibility, and love had matured him in ways that years of enabling never could. That evening, I created a video addressing family reconciliation, not sharing my specific situation, but discussing the broader question of how to engage with family after establishing healthy boundaries. Reconciliation doesn't always mean returning to old patterns, I explained to my followers. Sometimes it means creating a new relationship entirely one based on who you are now, not who you were expected to be. The video resonated deeply, generating thousands of comments from people navigating similar complex family dynamics. One comment stood out. I thought cutting contact with my toxic parents meant I had to be alone forever. You've shown me there's a middle path, compassion without compromise. As I replied to comments, I realized how far I'd come from the desperate need for approval that had characterized my early adulthood. The journey from paying a mortgage for a house that would never be mine to creating a life entirely on my own terms had transformed me completely. My phone buzzed with a message from my mother. Thank you for the information and the help. It means more than I can say. No guilt trip, no manipulation, just simple gratitude. Perhaps we were all changing. 4 years have passed since I discovered my parents' betrayal. My Freedom on Wheels platform has grown to 200,000 followers across platforms, a respectable community built through consistent content, genuine connections, and valuable information rather than viral stunts or controversy. I've published 2 books, a guide to mobile living combined with reflections on breaking free from toxic family dynamics, and a more focused work on financial independence for women. Both perform well in their niche categories, providing a modest but meaningful income stream to supplement my blog revenue and sponsorship deals. At 38, I've evolved from someone desperately seeking family approval to a woman comfortable in her own skin and choices. My journey has taken me to 30 states and 3 countries so far: New Zealand, southern Mexico, and a 2-week exploration of Portugal's coastal regions. Each international trip has expanded my perspective and content, connecting me with followers around the world. My current trailer is indeed comfortable, not in the ostentatious way my parents might have once defined luxury, but in its thoughtful design, quality materials, and perfect functionality for my needs. It's been featured in several design magazines and has inspired countless followers to reimagine their living spaces. The transformation wasn't overnight. It was built day by day, choice by choice. From 10,000 followers to 50,000 to 100,000, to where I am now, each milestone representing countless hours of content creation, engagement, and strategic partnerships. My family situation has evolved too. Lucas and Sarah got married in a small ceremony last year. He's now the manager of the music store, having worked his way up from sales associate to assistant manager to his current position over 4 years of consistent effort. They're expecting their first child, a girl, in 3 months. Would you consider being her honorary aunt? Lucas asked during a recent video call. I know we're not close in the traditional sense, but you're family. And I want my daughter to know the woman who showed me it's never too late to grow up. The request touched me deeply. I'd be honored, I replied. My father recovered from his heart attack, though the experience aged him significantly. The 6 months of part-time care I helped finance gave my mother the breathing room she needed to adjust to their new reality. They've settled into a smaller, more manageable lifestyle, still struggling financially but no longer in crisis. Our relationship remains complicated, too much history to simply forget, too many patterns to easily change. But there's a fragile piece now, built on the foundation of firm boundaries. I visit them occasionally when my travels bring me to their area. These visits are brief, conducted in public places, and focused on the present rather than rehashing the past. They've stopped asking for money outright, though I sometimes catch a flicker of calculation in my father's eyes when I mention a new book deal or partnership. Old habits die hard. During my last visit, my father said something that caught me off guard. You were right to leave, he admitted, staring into his coffee cup rather than meeting my eyes. We treated you like a resource, not a daughter. It wasn't a full apology, nothing about the fraud, the lies, the gaslighting, but it was an acknowledgement, however small, of the dynamic that had driven me away. Thank you for saying that, I replied simply. Your mother reads your books, he continued, says they help her understand you better. I nodded, unsure how to respond to this unexpected vulnerability. I'm too old to change completely, he said with a weak smile. But I'm trying to be less of an ass. Progress, not perfection. Last month, I hosted a workshop in Seattle where I met dozens of followers in person. Among them was a woman in her 50s who approached me with tears in her eyes. Your first book saved my life, she told me. I was supporting my adult son who refused to work, draining my retirement savings because I thought that's what mothers do. After reading your story, I set boundaries. He was furious at first. But guess what? He got a job. He's standing on his own feet for the first time at 32. Stories like hers remind me that my journey isn't just about my freedom, it's about giving others permission to claim theirs too. As I sit outside my trailer this evening, watching the sunset over the Arizona desert, I reflect on the path that brought me here. From a woman who sent $850 every month to pay for a house that would never be hers, to someone who has created a life entirely on her own terms. The path wasn't always easy. Building a platform required persistence through months of slow growth. Establishing boundaries with family meant weathering guilt trips and emotional manipulation. Creating a sustainable nomadic lifestyle involved learning through trial and error. But the rewards have been immeasurable. Not just in followers or income, but in the profound peace that comes from living authentically. My story resonates because it's not unique. So many people feel trapped in situations they believe they can't escape: financial entanglements with family, careers chosen to please others, lives limited by others' expectations. If my journey has taught me anything, it's this. The key to freedom isn't necessarily found in dramatic confrontations or burning bridges. Sometimes it's simply in the quiet decision to stop participating in dynamics that diminish you, to walk away from tables where your worth is constantly questioned. My parents thought my decision to live in a trailer was the beginning of a downward spiral. Instead, it was the first step toward the most authentic, fulfilling chapter of my life. The irony doesn't escape me. They laughed at my trailer phase, considering it beneath someone with my education and potential. Now, as I travel the country in my beautifully customized home on wheels, sharing my journey with hundreds of thousands of engaged followers, that laughter has long since faded. Freedom, as it turns out, looks different for everyone. Mine has wheels. If this story resonated with you, make sure to like and subscribe for more content about creating a life on your own terms. Drop a comment below sharing one boundary you're committed to maintaining this year. We're all on this journey together.